good morning, Jax. How are you today?
Good morning, Wendy. I am fantastic. How are you today?
Doing great, even though it feels like minus 32 outside.
Does it? Does it? We've
And
we got the complete opposite. We got a +8 day, so we're feeling the spring a little.
well, but +5 tomorrow. So welcome to Alberta. Like that's like a 30 whatever degree difference in 24 hours.
And you guys got that snowstorm.
Yes, yeah, that came through. And we just keep sending it away. I know the rest of Canada's like, no, you keep it, but
We're all kind of duking it out for who's gonna get the last bit of winter here.
right. Sharing is caring. You take it since we've had our turn.
Passing it along, and eventually it'll all be gone.
That's right. Again, I think I said it last week. I'm just waiting to wear the flip-flops. School drop off today in high school. We sandals and socks, like open sandals, and through the snow. I'm like, okay, this person is also awaiting summer in a big way. I just tried to ignore the fact that their feet are going to be wet all day. But as a mom, you're just like, whatever. But I could support the
Could have been a
really wanting to wear
basketball
this.
player too.
Yeah, right. Oh, I guess. Yeah.
None of their style.
Welcome, everybody. Episode 6, putting the field back in Tuesday. Here we go. If you are new to our podcast, yeah, we're just dedicated to talking about some inner growth and self-improvement and exploring different things that come with that. So pathways of positivity and spirituality and mindfulness, talking about our feelings and validating them, and just offering a safe space to be able to do that with some unique perspectives maybe and ideas. And let's embrace our true selves. So we are your hosts. I'm Wendy.
And I am Jackson.
Here we go. Wow. Well, so to kick it off, what's putting the feel in your Tuesday this week, Jax?
Oh, well, I've got some great news. Well, first, I'm just going to touch on the fact that today you may notice that there's not going to be an Amber Schramm appearance. She
Oh,
had
yes.
some personal things to deal with today, so we might have a standing reservation for next Tuesday. But I am also super excited for the topics of this week because um, all of these last weeks we've been talking about our feelings and how to accept them and work through them. But then today's episode, just to foreshadow a bit, we're finally going to get into okay, now that we know how to work through our feelings and understand them, now how do we progress and get better? So I'm really excited for these topics today. But for what's putting the feel in my Tuesday, Wendy, is the fact that I've been so many behind the scene things with working on this book, but one of them was I need to get a business number in order to get a business bank account in order when I'm doing the fundraiser, everything is properly tracked when I'm selling all these books. Because if I sell even 1,000 books, that's going to be very hard to keep track of when it comes to royalties and taxes and this and that. So I ended up getting a business number from the government of New Brunswick. It's called a sole proprietorship, and my business is called Cross Canada Jax Philanthropy. So it's registered in
I
the New
love it.
Brunswick database and the whole Canadian corporate registry. And I am now, I guess, a business owner, quote unquote, under Cross Canada Jax Philanthropy. So I thought that was super cool.
That is super cool. It's so much work. I mean, you almost need a bookkeeper with you on the road. You don't only have to be you, you also have to wear a bookkeeper hat, a seller hat, a Jack's hat. Yeah, that's a lot of work, right? So that I'm sure that felt good to get done. Like,
Yeah, it's there's so many different hats you got to wear, but
mhm.
I like being, kind of resourceful. It's
Yeah.
a word that I learned recently was resourcefulness, and it kind of just
Mhm.
clicked in my head, and I love that word, and ever since heard that out loud, I kind of wanted to lean into it. So it's like someone who can do more with less, rather than needing, yes, doing more with less, rather than needing more to do more. You kind of find
Mhm.
ways to work with what you got. That was a big I can even spit it off the top of my head. WWWYG. I always had those letters in my head. Work with what you got. It's kind of like my motto when I was
Yeah.
wanting to be still love surfing, but I was in Winnipeg, no oceans or anything around. And I was like, well,
Yeah.
how am I gonna surf when I'm landlocked? I was like,
Mm,
WWWYG, work with what you got. So I got a surfboard and I would just go all over to like little streams and anywhere I could find with water, and I just go paddle around and
yeah.
practice.
Well, yeah, because the balance, right? That's a good thing to practice with. I mean, it's different standing up, but yeah, lots of different ways to. Well, that is awesome. And it's just another box checked off for you, right? You're doing good. You are making your way down the list.
We're getting there. And so what's putting the feel into your Tuesday this week, Wendy?
Well, I've just been trying to put some energy into being creative. I mean, maybe a lot of people have had the moon putting the feel in their Tuesday this week. So that too, some big emotions sort of come around. So, just been trying to be clear on my own boundaries and doing some things that I know I enjoy, like, writing and yeah, just some creative things to not just distract, but you're also doing something that you enjoy. So I am distracting, but I'm also, putting some positivity in with it. And yeah, just, I think boundaries are maybe going to be a big one for me in this full moon. So yeah, I think the moon's probably putting the feel in a lot of people's Tuesday, but yeah, I've just been trying to even that out this week.
Nice. Well, I know you've had some really great tarot lives this week. You could just
Mm,
feel good energy in your room, and it
yeah.
was, yeah, I can definitely sense that. And one last thing to touch on was last week we had put out the goal of trying to maintain our peace and maintain our basically positive energy, doing anything at all costs, not to lean into the negatives, because we spoke about how that's a perpetuating, never-ending cycle. When you lean into the negative and engage with it, instead of just kind of leaving it out there, then it just creates a never-ending whirlwind. So I put out the goal for everyone last week to try and best as they could to just tune out all the negative and just try to lean into as much positive. I know it wasn't easy. We literally, it's just kind of funny how the universe works. 4 hours after our podcast, we were already being tested, but I kept true. I mean, if I was gonna put out that goal, I didn't want to be the one to also give in right away. So I stuck
Mhm.
with it. My brain's been clear. I've been so much at peace. I've just been feeling good, getting stuff done. How about you,
Good.
Wendy?
Well, good. I think, reactionary at first, I definitely think when there is something negative that's going on, perhaps that affects somebody we know, there's lots of negative stuff. You turn on the news, you're going to hear a bunch of stuff about people you don't know, and you can still, sort of feel it, but you maybe don't take it in the same when it has to do with people in our personal lives. That the fact that you care and are, like, oh my goodness. So it's navigating through that at first. Usually I was aware of that and I was like, oh, okay. So the wanting to recognize it at least is the caring part in me, and you just want to offer your support at least, and that's okay.
Mhm.
But just no more step after that, right? No more. But I think a lot of us, when it's a personal investment, somebody we care about, it's a lot easier to jump that gun a little bit. But yeah, no, I've been working hard at that. I think I did pretty good at the homework. But yeah, you are correct. The universe was like, oh, okay, that's your homework. Here you go.
Literally, we were tested. I think a lot of the Cure crew will relate that we've all been tested.
Yeah.
I'd be interested to hear if anyone was able to make it to this week with, just because
Yeah.
you explained that fantastically. The point where you can be caring and supportive to the person you care about, but then there's also a point where you go one step further where you are diving really into all
Yes.
of that energy that didn't really need to be dove into. It could have just been left at, here's my support, I care for you, I'm here for you,
Yeah.
and whatever happened wasn't right, but now let's
Yeah.
regroup and move on. So
Exactly. Yeah. And it's okay to offer that for sure. And then it's just easy once that ball starts rolling, but you just gotta, know when to stop the ball. Put your foot down and stop the ball. Yeah.
Exactly. Because it
Yeah.
can
How did everybody else do? If you feel like, sort of sharing how your week went, how the homework went for you. Um, yeah, if you feel like doing that, let us know how that went.
Yeah, I'd love to hear. And maybe we almost make that like a recurring theme where every week when we meet back, we'll see were we able to keep our peace?
Mm,
Was there negative energy that entered our world, and how did we deal
yeah.
with it? I'd love to know.
Yeah.
So next thing on our list here, Wendy, I guess we've got our card pull for the week.
Our card pull, I was shuffling as we were going. So I have our card today. So some of these isn't necessarily something you incorporate in your day to continually do throughout your day, but definitely if you take time to reflect on them. So I think this would be one of them. So this is a deep one this morning, guys. Not that they're not all deep, but here we go. Let's be ready. So this is a reflection card. So when you lost someone that you loved, what did you gain in their absence?
Wow.
Yeah, I know. Okay, here we go. That's why I did the little warning first. So yeah, when you lost someone that you loved, what did you gain in their absence? So I think, that can apply. It doesn't always have to be like grief or a loss or death. There's relationships that end in our lives, and those people could have meant a whole bunch, and they're no longer there. So however it resonates when you hear it, wherever your mind goes first, follow that initial gut when you got a card like that. But yeah, even if it's a separation or a loss that's big and deep, or maybe not always positive, they always do, you do gain things in an absence still.
Oh gosh, absolutely. I mean, my mind went to like nine specific occasions, right to when
Okay.
I was a young boy, and luckily, I had my stepfather, great, amazing man who always looked after and took care of us. But when you're a kid and like, my parents got separated, and my biological father never really had any part in our lives, which I think, you can consider that a loss. But personally, I feel like you gain so much when you lose
Mhm.
people because it really makes you reflect and think and just maybe it's like building coping mechanisms in your head, but I
Yeah.
truly think like every loss kind of gives you a reality check that nothing's permanent, and maybe at
Mhm.
the end of the day all you have is yourself. And so instead of relying on other people, you're just going to become the best version of yourself, so then you never have to you really uh have any of those losses like really set you
Yeah.
back. So, I mean, an early loss like that, and then even like, yeah, life partners back, like, earlier girlfriends, when I lost them, it's kind of a reminder no one's permanent as well. But then what I
Yeah.
gained from that is like, you could go one of two ways. You could actually keep losing, or you could like gain and improve yourself. And
Yes.
yeah, for me, what that one means is like, with the constant reminder that you're always going to be losing people you love.
Mhm.
Um, just it just gives you an opportunity to make yourself better.
Exactly. Yep. And you sort of, I mean, I notice the older I get a little bit, the more I think about a loss as family members, your own. You start to get to an age where you're like, oh my God, that person was only 55. How old am I? Okay. um, but yeah, whether or not it's a loss in that regard, if people taught you lessons, um, there's still constant reminders, even though that person isn't there anymore. So the absence is there, but you're gaining the reminder of the lessons they've taught you, even if it is, again, even if it is a loss and the grief, when the grief comes in, because grief happens in waves, I think, it makes you reflect a little bit in that time, and then it reminds you, right, about that person and your relationship with them and things like that. And then if it's not a loss, yeah, I agree. When it comes to that, like your stepfather, so maybe for like the greater good, right? Your stepfather was supposed to be there. That was the person to be in your home with your family. And I had a big relationship loss around 19 years old. We were supposed to get married.
What?
Oh Lord, you did different whole other podcast. Um,
Love that.
but there would be no Spencer.
Yeah.
There might be a kid, but it wouldn't be Spencer. You know what I mean? So what did I gain in that absence? Well, the opportunity to have other relationships and grow in them and keep learning a bit more about myself, perhaps to get ready for this one. This is the longest relationship I've had, and I so feel it's the strongest because I grew quite a bit before entering, and now we kind of grow together. So that sort of deal, that's something I gained in that absence. So whether or not you look at it as, an actual loss or just a, relationship not going, or even friend you don't talk to anymore, whatever it is, sit down and really think about that. What did you gain in the absence of that? And then the little quote on the top is from Helen Keller, and it says, "What we have once enjoyed deeply, we can never lose. All that we love deeply becomes part of us."
One more time for the people in the back.
There we go. What we have once enjoyed deeply, we can never lose. All that we love deeply becomes part of us.
Deep.
Yes.
Helen had a lot of time to reflect, so
Yes.
no,
Yeah,
she's throwing out wisdom bombs. But
that was a good one.
we could kind of backtrack to the things you were just saying because you said it perfect there. When we lose someone, but they're still alive, I find there's lessons to be learned, and that's so important. That's the wisdom part of it. But I actually, then you touched on when you physically lose someone from this earth, like where
Mhm.
can there be gain from that? Like, I don't know. I don't know if I ever lost like my brother, if I would really be gaining. Like, what would I be gaining? I don't know. It's such an interesting one to ponder because mine immediately went to like, okay, I've lost some people, but they're still on this earth, you know? And so you can
Mhm.
still know there's no grief left because it's like, okay, they're not a part of my life, but they're still alive, so everything's okay. You know, there's maybe always a chance, even not even that you want them back in your life ever, but you just know they're still out there.
Yeah.
But then a physical loss, like how do you gain from that? Because I'm just thinking to like some people I deeply care about
Mhm.
just lost some people to cancer. And
Mhm.
like if they're listening right now, like how do they gain from that? Or, how do they process that?
Well, at first, I mean, I'm not sure. I get what you're saying there. There's maybe not a gain in the actual l- loss. Like, oh my goodness. And especially if it's, not just peacefully at the age of 99 in bed, if it's cancer and there's this and there's that, whatever it is, or tragic loss, the loss itself, maybe not. But it, to me, again, everybody resonate where it does for you. But to me, that one is maybe something to contemplate down the road. So, like, just for me, I have an uncle that passed away when I was very young, and I was very close to him, as close as you could be at the age of 10, 11, 12. Lived in a different city, tried to see him as often as we could. And he constantly took me to the planetarium. So, is that why I love the stars, the sky? Did that love keep going? The interest in it? You bet. Um, there was a chessboard in his apartment that I always wanted to learn how to play, and we never sort of got the time to sort of do that. Um, but it was this gorgeous marble chessboard. Eventually in adult years, sort of learned how to play that. Uh, Spencer learned from a family member, and now me and him sit there and play chess. And so it's like little things sort of carry with you. And if you've had someone that you were close with that taught you things or gave you inspiration into something, or just gave you something that you think back on a lot when you need support or help, that is a bit of a gain because they left something with you. Like Ellen said, it becomes a part of you. They left something with you. But the actual loss, yeah, it's hard to find a gain there. I get that.
Wow, you said that so beautifully, Wendy. Once you kind of can get over that grief and then you kind
Mm,
of lean into what made them them, and embrace that, and then you could probably even immerse yourself and love it even more. So, no,
yeah,
really well explained. There's always going to be that grief from a loss, but then how do you gain in their absence? Absolutely. You can get totally dive into what made them them and see like what, because we all have our own interests and make us who we are as people, and it's so
yeah,
interesting to talk to other people and find out what kind of gets them out of bed in the morning, and everyone it's a different reason. And
yeah.
so cool. I'm so glad we were able to kind of dive a little deeper into that. So did you have
And
anything else to say on the card
there-
pull, or
there's probably just one little quick thing. There's probably quite a few people in your crew that have gained perhaps this community in an absence of maybe someone they've lost to cancer as well, just as another example that might have brought them towards you. Oh, well, look, this guy's walking for cancer. And look at all these extra little things that came with it. So just as another example, it's a different way. It doesn't have to be something so that they left with you or whatever, but there's always sort of little connections. Um, so that can be another thing. You just like part of the looking around and keeping the eyes open and finding little connections, even with those people.
gosh, Wendy, I feel like a lot of people listening today already are gonna just be loving. I'm eating everything you're up that you're saying, because you're just yeah, you're really making so much sense of everything today. I love it. Wait,
Well,
we need more Wendy. That's what I keep telling Wendy. I'm like, Wendy, somehow I just need to dip my bush and get you just getting all these facts, and I'm just here as a student, got my
yeah,
notebook, listening
no,
along.
hey, the notes you should see. I take notes from you as well. I really, I know I've said it before, but just that I really think it's a fun, fresh perspective from somebody younger to just we forget so much, right? From being that age and looking at things certain ways. Um, no, there's just as much coming back at me. I absolutely love it.
Well, I think it might stem from I want to see people live and not survive, and
Yeah,
kind of leading us into our topic for the day. But like, life, I like to think there's like a Buddhist saying where life is suffering and it's gonna be hard and suffering no matter what. So it's kind of like, what direction do you want to suffer in? Suffer in like the hardships it takes to like live a positive, like eventful life, or the hardships it takes to not take any action on any of it.
right.
So it's you're gonna suffer in either direction, and
Yes.
it's the one we decide to choose. And I feel like I've just come to terms with the fact that everyone is on their own journey, everything is hard for everyone, and we all just want to get through the day and feel good about ourselves and be happy and just live our life. And I feel
Yeah.
so many people are stuck in a loop where they're just, they're in their own head. They're not really living life to their greatest extent. And then you
Mm,
get stuck in this rut, and it can
yeah.
last years and years and years and years. And then you can you can find this kind of dialogue when you're young and be like, well, wait a minute, I don't want to suffer for the rest of my life. Or maybe you find it when you're 60 and you're like, wait a minute, this is the stuff I've been needing to hear my whole life. Where has it been? So I don't think it matters what age you want to be someone to share some of this knowledge with. It's just
Yeah.
like it doesn't matter. You could any age, anyone at any age can still learn something new and
Yeah.
try to better their mindset.
So do you think so would you say that right now would you for yourself would you qualify yourself as living or surviving? And do you think there's ever been a period in your life where you can recognize that you were maybe just in that survival mode?
Well, I would definitely say I'm a liver for sure.
Yep.
Because every day I wake up and I do what I want to do.
Mm.
And it took a lot of years to get to this point and a lot of hard work and whatnot. But it's not like I'm not working, like I'm still putting
Right.
in all the same outputs as everyone else. It's just
Mm.
for myself rather than for an occupation I don't care about. So
Right.
I
Yeah.
think I'm living. And if there's ever been a point that I was surviving, I'm not too sure. So I think I kind of got like it was kind of lucky for me because when I was younger, my older brother almost always had this existential dread. He's like, are
Okay.
we gonna have to go when we were still kids? He'd be like, is life just we wake up, go to work all day, come home, eat dinner, sleep, and do that again? He's like, I don't want that to be my life. And I always took a little bit after my older brother. So I was like, I don't want that to be my life either. Like, what kind of life is that? Just living to work instead of working to live.
Yes.
Yeah. So immediately from a young age, I was like, I don't want to go down that path. I'm going to do whatever it takes in my entire life to do the things I love. And
Mm.
that doesn't mean just laying on the beach all day and doing nothing for society. It just meant doing something that I loved that contributed to society. So at first, I started out, I wanted to be a pro gamer, as most kids do nowadays, and so I would play 12, 16 hours a day. And at that point, I felt like I was living my best life. That's all I wanted to do. I was getting really good, you know, not to toot my own horn, but out of 100 million North American players, I was ranked 200 at one point. But
Oh,
even that
wow.
wasn't good enough to be a professional player. So, and then one day my brother came to me and he said, "Do you know why you're so good at that game?" And I was like, "No, I'm just good at video games. It's just how I am." And he goes, "It's because you put 12 to 16 hours a day on it." He goes, "If you put that amount of effort into anything else in this world, you would be that level in anything in any other domain." And that kind of flipped the switch in my head at that point where I was like,
Wow.
wait a minute, he's right. So, eventually I kind of took a step back from that professional gamer mindset because, I maybe could have kept going and maybe did it, but at that point, I just didn't like how stationary it made me. I didn't like
Yeah.
being at a desk 16 hours. Like it keeps your mind going, but not my body. And then I
Mm.
was then I just kind of got into fitness and learned about Terry Fox and started working at the personal care home, which to me, I wasn't even surviving doing that because I loved my job. So I was just
Yeah.
living every day. And then I got to the point now where I was like, how can living for me is helping people and serving others. And so I was like, how can I serve others with my talents? And it kind of came to a full circle moment where my inspiration, Terry Fox, got to do what he loved, which was run. And in doing what he loved, he got to do good for the world. And so
Yeah.
I kind of came to the realization one day, I'm like, I can do what I love, which is run, and
Mhm.
also do good for the world. And so it just seems like I've been lucky with just honestly having an older brother who kind of cleared the path for us in order to kind of understand the world
Yeah.
much faster. He's learning the lessons and then from 2 years ahead, and then we can just avoid all like think if you're going through a jungle and you're bushwhacking, like
Yeah.
he's doing all that out so we can just fly by. And so I just feel like maybe he could have been more in survival mode most of his life, which
Yeah.
led some of us to being able to just live because he had to do all the surviving while we did all the living. Well, at least in my case with him. So
Yes.
kind of a long-winded story, but I think I've just been so lucky to my all of my life circumstances, some of the traumas and some of the positives, all just came to a perfect basic recipe for me to just figure out what my values were early and then to really just
Yeah.
truly live them out. And instead of just like pretend like not pretending in a way, but like I truly live my values to the T. And so far it's been working out for me. And yeah, I want to hopefully get some other people out of survival mode and lean more into living, whatever that may look like for them.
Yeah, that is a very good way that, I mean, I've heard it, I try and practice that, but just I could visualize that moment for a second, even though I don't know what your brother looks like. You said it very perfectly. The whole, if you put that many hours into something else, you'll master that too. It's very simple. It's very black and white, but a lot of times we don't think of that simple, oh yeah, hey, yeah, you're right. Okay. Like sometimes someone just saying it, right? That must have been, you can almost see the little light bulb go off. Yeah, and that's awesome to have, that support. And like I like the way you described that you had someone to sort of clear that bushwhacking out for you so you guys can just sort of follow that path a little bit, and still figure things out for you too. But yeah, that seems like a very good inspirational person in your life for sure.
Yeah, and he was more way more of a reader than I am. I'm more of a I'm like one day you'll have to meet my brother Wendy. He's an amazing guy. But
Sounds like it.
he read this book called Mastery. I think it's by Robert Greene. I don't know
Okay.
his name, but he's got all kinds of self-improvement books. But basically, the whole premise around the book Mastery was he went and interviewed all of these people who were masters of their craft, and the one thing they all had in common was they basically have put in 10,000 hours into that craft. So if you did karate for 10,000 hours compared to someone who's done karate for 100, you're going to see a huge difference. And whether that's Picasso, who's definitely has way more than 10,000 hours with a paintbrush, or a
Yeah.
soccer player like Ronaldo, who's got probably 30,000 hours just with a soccer ball in his feet. So it's not just by chance that these people are outliers. It's
Mm,
because of all the outputs they've put in, and they've gotten to that point where they have 10,000 hours in a thing. That's why I always tell Tammy from the yarn store she's so good at crocheting because over her 30 years of crocheting, she's probably got over 10,000 hours. So she should be considered a master of her craft. But
that sounds like a very good book. Interesting. Like, even that concept going out and asking and interviewing a bunch of people in different crafts, finding that one commonality, that sounds like a very interesting read, actually. Yeah.
I would love to ask you the same question back, Wendy. Have there ever
Yeah,
been a point in your life where you've been surviving, and do you ever feel like you've reached that point where you're actually living your best life?
yeah, they're definitely, I used to have a hard time trying to describe it. There definitely was a period of surviving, just as far as maybe not necessarily as much surviving, but because I want to talk about the difference between those two in a minute, but I definitely felt that I wasn't living, and I had a hard time uh articulating what I meant to people. And it eventually sort of came down to like, you're just walking on the water of this beautiful place you want to go swimming in, but you can't get in the water. You're just on it. It just always felt like missing something or not getting the full extent of what should be going on. I'm just walking on the water trying to get underneath. Like, you want to go swimming, you want to like be in it and experience it, but there was just this feeling of basicness, just gliding along here. I had a hard time sort of figuring that out, and slowly over time, I think I'm away from that a little bit more. I think I am living um, a little bit more than surviving, and I've been able to figure out how to be able to dip into that water a little bit and experience things more. Because I think the big difference, if we are in survival mode, I think it's my opinion, you're just sort of doing the basic necessities. You're taking care of the basic necessities. You're sort of persevering. You're alive and you're breathing. But I think when we're in survival mode, we're just focusing on what's right in front of us because that's all we can do. We can't quite look ahead or plan, or we're just, okay, this is what's in front of me. Let's go. Like, this is what I can do. And yeah, we're taking care of our basic necessities. And that, I think, start for me, anyways, it was that's how one day leads into another. Like your brother's okay, your brother said, we get up, we work, we do this, we go to bed, we get up, we do it again. It can lead into that cycle. When we're living a little bit more, dipping into that water, I think it refers to having experiences. You're still alive and you're breathing, but you're engaged. There's activities, there's experiences, there's pursuits. um, there's something for you to get just charged up about. Um, and you're sort of making decisions that have to do with consequences, and that sort of keeps it exciting too, because that spontaneous choice of living and dealing with consequences makes it a little bit more worth the risk. So I think that's the difference between the two of them. And I definitely was in I had a period of survival mode for sure, where you're just like, come on, what else is there? There's gotta be something. You just feel stuck.
Oh, no, I love everything you just said there. Yeah, and I know you used to talk about like your customer service job you didn't
Yeah,
like. So I know like the reason I say that is because I find a lot of dread comes from our workplace, and I know not everyone can just get up and change their workplace because
yeah,
sometimes, you're so deep into it, you got your mortgage, you got kids, and it's just at this point, you are just surviving for your kids or
yes,
whoever that might be. But
yeah,
and then there's the case where some people do absolutely love their workplace, they love their coworkers, and then so it doesn't make that week go by so slow. You actually can enjoy and get fulfillment out of what you do.
mhm,
But for let's say you're someone, you do not like your job, you're just there because you gotta pay the bills somehow. We all do. Um, One thing I think is a good way to slowly start climbing out of that survival mode is into the living mode is to actually do some inner work, figure out what is it that you're interested in life. It can be anything. You could be interested in astronauts, space, rocks, gardening,
yeah,
whatever. Um, and then I think it's a point of we all need to put in that 40 hours, but then what do we do with the extra 8 every evening
yeah,
that can kind of bring us back to life a bit? Because
yes,
it can be soul draining to go to a job, even a job you love every day. It starts to
mhm,
just suck the soul out of you,
yeah,
and then you need that thing that brings your shine back. And so I would recommend everyone to find something you really, really love and
yeah,
enjoy, and try and put some time aside for that every night. And it's not even to try to become like the master as it is. Like some people are very, really extreme and they just,
yeah,
anything they encounter or do, they want to like put as much time and work and become the best at.
yeah,
But even if it's something little like fishing or
yeah,
gardening or we always say crochet, knitting, whatever that might be that you really, really love to do, because I think every human being has that one thing. If they didn't have to work, they would do that
yes,
16 hours a day, right? It's just the work gets in the way. So
hmm,
find that thing that you would do 16 hours a day and then start doing it every day, little by little, and just start making that your whole, like, not your whole identity, but really immerse yourself into that hobby. And not everyone, people, this is also a thing I learned when I was young that people try to lean into. They said, if you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life. And
yeah,
so I always tried to find a way, like the goal was people would have their thing and then their hobby. And then the dream is to make that hobby able to make enough income so you don't have to do that work. And then your hobby becomes your life and you're living your fullest, best life. Just like
Right.
Tammy here in the yarn store, she loved crocheting so much. It's all
Mm-hmm.
she wanted to do. So after work every day, she somehow managed to get to the point where she could own her own yarn store. So every
Yeah.
minute of every day is now filled with crocheting, yarn, everything that she loves related.
Yeah, and it doesn't, and I think a lot of people sometimes think, oh, that maybe that's not going to help. So you're saying if I like do my hobby that I love for 20 minutes a day, it's not going to help. Even if you start doing that, you might no longer pay attention to the time. You might want, after doing it for a couple weeks, you're just rewiring your brain without really realizing it if you're not putting conscious thought into it. And now you're doing that thing for 2 hours and you're like, oh God, it's time for bed. But you've been, if you had the time and availability, you've been doing that thing that's making you feel calm or lights you up or whatever it is. And slowly, and you might not, I mean, it would be great if we could all turn what we love to do into a job. Fantastic. Do we all have that luxury? No, but you never know where it could lead, even if it's just a small thing or a side thing, or you just don't know where it could lead. So it's the opportunity of giving yourself that chance to just thrive in the little pursuit and the experiences that you're looking for. And it gives you that little sense of fulfillment and satisfaction. And you just that feels good, even if it's a small period of time. That feels good because we can get stuck in that survival mode, with prolonged stress or anxiety, or our brain, when we get stuck in prolonged trauma or stress, your brain just boots up that way in the morning. Here we
Mm.
go, let's go, this is where we are. You just, and then you just get comfortable in that state without really realizing it. So once you sort of notice that, oh, okay, I might be in survival mode a little bit, there's just those tiny things to try to change. You're just trying to rewire that a little bit differently, and then it might just start happening naturally as you show yourself that those things are fun to do, or you can do something different and you're like, oh, I didn't do the exact same thing today.
And it's always a catalyst. Like it always starts small. You're never gonna start at the finish
Mm,
line. And so if you just accept that you're gonna start at the beginning and try to immerse yourself, you'll realize like one day you maybe did it 20, the next day you'll be like, well, wait a minute. Well, now I actually know how to do this a little better. And then you end up going for 40. And then
yeah,
2 months later, you're so immersed in it. A journey you never expected or could foresee into any kind. Like, I just think the world is so cool because there's so many different things you can immerse yourself into.
yeah,
You got David Suzuki who just loves trees, and then you've got someone else who loves to paint, and you got
yeah,
someone else who just loves to hike, and then you got
yeah,
all these different people that love to do all these different things, and the immersion of getting so deep into something, whatever it might be, it opens up so many cool and interesting worlds. Like, who would have thought that just running 5K around my neighborhood would one day lead me up to running 7,000 kilometers across the second biggest country in the entire world? But
yeah,
I mean, when I first started, I didn't think it would lead me there, but the
yeah.
consistent repetition of these things every single day will just like get lead you further and further because you'll know what more is possible.
Exactly that. Keep pushing, because I was about to say, it's almost like you're in there. I bet you, even in those 5 kilometers, and I bet you, even in those 7,000 kilometers, there may have been a time or two where even that started to feel same old. You know what I mean? So you got to push it again to keep it relevant, to keep it feeling like it lights you up. Now, when there's a big goal like that possible, you're trying to get from one coast to the other. Yeah, I get that. But I'm sure, even though this was something that pushed and this and this and that, even when we get to those things that we want to do, or we get immersed in that, it's okay to keep pushing and make a change somewhere, because it might start to feel same old after a little while. And that's what's so joyful about being alive. And like you said, there's just people interested in so many different things. You can pivot, you can change, you can try something else for a while and then walk across another country, like whatever, right? Yeah.
And I think we've probably both been beating around the bush here and not saying this word because it's the word of our next topic. But I
Yeah.
feel like it's important to introduce this next word
Yeah.
because and the next word I'm talking about here is goals. And it's super interesting that Wendy and I have not touched on this topic yet until episode 6. Like I was
Yeah.
saying at the start of the episode, I think we've kind of been cultivating how to get through emotions, how to just
Mm,
deal with the difficulties of everyday life. But I
yeah.
think now it's time to start, for those who want, start taking action and start moving forward on all taking all these advices. And then how do you really reach that next level? And the huge word around that is goals.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So, goals are super important. And just in case, like, just very quick, just in case maybe there are some people that are like, well, so I heard what you said between the two, but am I in survival mode? Just, paying attention to tiny things, like if you're feeling really overwhelmed constantly, or having trouble sleeping, or anxious about what's sort of coming next, um, having trouble with memory, like it's all because of that overwhelmedness, right? You're struggling to pay attention. And if you just feel like you're in that cycle, one of the things that can help bring you out of it a tiny bit is goals, because now you're okay, that's going to give me something different to do tomorrow, so that it doesn't feel exactly like today. So figuring out if you think you're sort of in that little stuckness, and then yeah, let's work on goals. Let's think about goals.
And sorry, I know I'm the one who brought up goals. I did want to say one more thing. What you were saying about survival and living is
Yeah.
like I did say, I'm mostly in living mode, but I could definitely find myself in survival mode too, where
Mm,
you're just not putting your best foot forward every day.
yeah.
You're waking up to get through the day and then you're going to bed and just hoping tomorrow will be better. But then it's not because you haven't set any goals.
Right. And survival mode can last a short period of time too. It just it's my opinion, how fast you recognize you're in it
Hmm.
is how fast you'll bring yourself up. So yeah, if you've got a period where there's some things going and you've had to kick into survival mode, that's okay. And there are some people that need to go there. They're going through some big serious stuff, and that's okay. I'm not, I don't think either one of us are saying that, survival mode is just an absolute no, get out of it. Sometimes we do have to go and live in there for a little bit. But as long as we can recognize it and find a little way out too when we need it, I think that's super important too. But I do recognize that some people have to go into that little survival mode shell, and that's okay. If there's some safety there for you right now, it's
Well,
okay.
absolutely. I mean, we can push, and we get so
Yeah.
burnt out to the point that survival mode, for some of us, if we're able to kind of jump in and out of it, it's kind of that recharge moment for some of us where it's like, okay, instead of just kind of doing a consistent bit every day, I did way
Yep.
too much for a week. Now I
Yep.
need to kind of jump back into survival mode, let everything kind of recharge. And when I'm done being in survival mode, let's get back to living. But it's
Yes.
about finding that balance to the point where you can just live every day and then not have to burn yourself out, go into survival mode, and then
Yep.
start from the ground up. But
Yeah.
part of goals linking in with survival mode, I don't know about anyone else, but for me, I find when I do my best, it's like it gets even the little things. I'll find days where, okay, so I wake up, first thing, it's like brushing my teeth. Like, I mean, I'm not even, I'm gonna admit this, I'm not proud of it. Some days, not like all the times, but sometimes I don't brush my teeth because it's like I have no energy or power to like do anything for myself. So there's no toothbrushing There's
Yep.
no shower that day. There's
Mm-hmm.
no taking the dog for a walk around the block. There's
Yep.
you start to like stop taking care of yourself and you're just surviving. And I find the way I can slowly build myself out of that survival mode to like build myself up into the best version of myself, it's literally starts with the smallest thing. Okay, I brushed my teeth. Check. That's huge thing done.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I showered. Check. That's another big
Yep.
thing. Now I'm gonna clean my house so my brain isn't like incapacitated because my living space is clean. So I'm clean,
Yeah.
my living space is clean. Now maybe I gotta just get the workday over with. Okay, so my living space is clean, I'm clean,
Yep.
the job's done for the day, and then you can be like, well, what's next? And then
Mm.
you start to build off of that. But I think the first thing it starts with is self-care and making sure
Yes.
you're dealt with, your home is dealt with, maybe your kids and your pets are dealt with. But it's
Yep.
like you gotta just use that momentum and use that momentum.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Slowly
Because
start to
if
find your
you
way.
acknowledge and recognize that you're in that mode, right? Obviously. And that's okay too. So we're like, okay, well, now what do I do? And you, like you said, it might feel good to get that teeth brushed and then to have the shower and then to get dressed in your building. You're right. You slowly feel a bit better and better. Now it's a bit easier to ask yourself, what's next? As opposed to, oh, okay, you've done a few things and you've taken some self-care and you're whatever that is for you. Once you start to feel a bit better, it makes it easier to look beyond what's right in front of you, which is, that bit of that survival. So yeah, to build, build, build. I love that. Build.
Gotta build. You gotta, no matter who you are, you
Yeah.
have to build. And then, yeah, it literally like, and then once you like do it long enough and you're on top of your crap, and then you'll realize like how much more you can do. And it's such
Hmm.
a cascading effect. And that's
It,
why we
yeah.
use the word goals because that's why I carry around a book and I always have a to-do list on the go and I always have like a vision board as to some of the things I want to work towards in the future. So I'm
Yep.
always constantly reminding myself, and let's say I do fall off the wagon, there's
Mhm.
still written reminders in front of me as to what to do to get back on the wagon.
Exactly. Because it's okay to fall off that and have that list. I am a big fan of lists. I love the lists. I think they're super important. I even have lists for my lists. It's a sickness, but and Steve, I get made fun of by my hubby quite a bit, especially because I'll make them so much everywhere. Sometimes they're tiny, right? But I've got it. I know. Do what works for you, right? Make your own. It's when I make that tiny list and like actually rip it off and send it to him. Here's the grocery list that starts to get a little. Now he's like, Jason, do you want your lists? But yeah, do with what sort of works for you because that's also a level of creating a plan, which is a good way. Another way to help sort of get out of that is creating a plan for yourself, asking for help if you think you're in that survival mode and you need help building yourself a plan or a list or whatever level that might be. Asking for help to be able to get out of that and just forgiving yourself for being in that mode. That's okay. Some people beat themselves up and they're like, I should be able to do this or this or this or this. Nope, just your brain is in survival mode right now. That isn't anyone's fault. Just work with it and go. But yeah, the goals are big helps to get you focusing in a direction.
Right? Like it's so hard to say because like I don't know what anyone's goals are that are listening, but for
Yeah,
example, I'll just use myself as an example for this one for goals. Like
yeah,
I will write down all the things I need to do for the week and then the things I need to do for the month and the things I want to get done for in a year. And
yep,
every day when you wake up, like eventually if like let's say that you're on top of the toothbrushing, you're on top of the showering, maybe you're on top of going out and getting a bit of steps every day, steps for Terry. So once all of
yep.
that, because it's really hard to tackle your goals if all of
Mm,
those needs aren't met. So let's just
Yes.
say, for example, those needs are met. Um, that's what I love about the list and goals is that like it literally gives you something to wake up to and be excited for. And like
Yeah.
some things on my list I can't wait to get to start doing and cross off the list because I know it's making me better as a human being. And that's what I feel like we're all in pursuit and like we all want to just be the best version of our human being we can.
Yeah.
And doing nothing is going to create no change. So even just the littlest inputs will actually create a lot of output.
Yeah. And I think some people think on a really big scale with goals right off the hop, and
Mm.
then it starts to feel overwhelming. I think it's great. I love what you said that you've got like today list, this week list, this year list, because you could write out that entire thing without subcategorizing it. And when you look at it, you're like, oh crap, like, oh my God. You're like, no, no, just get this done today, get this done this week. You're breaking it down. You need to figure it out. Everybody works differently, but what steps for you are going to be successful? So, not looking at it like, this is the very end goal that I have to get done now. Well, okay, no, you're probably going to need some steps. So I think some tips on goal setting can help some people so that not looking too far ahead. So I think that's an awesome one. Doing
Yeah.
your little sub lists.
Break it down. Like I could have just easily wrote on my list, write a book. And I'd be like, what the heck does that entail? But then when you break it down, like write your first chapter, check in with your illustrator. And then every week it's maybe write the next chapter. And then by the end of like 12 weeks, you have a fully written book, you have all your illustrations, and then you can start peeking into the next thing. What's the next thing? Okay, publishing. How do I self-publish? And then now I need to worry about printing. Now I need to worry about library codes. Now I need to worry about this, that. And there's just, if I had just wrote write book, that would have been way too big of a goal. I'm
Yeah.
lucky that in college, I think, luckily in my program, it was called Therapeutic Recreation Facilitator for Older Adults. Very long
Okay.
term. But the great thing was basically as an activity coordinator, there's only so much you can teach someone to do. So luckily, a
Right.
lot of our courses were based around like interpersonal communications,
Mhm.
goals. We had a whole class around goal setting and how to properly manage your goals. And just basically it was like a 7-month program of making you just like learning about how to be the best version of yourself. And then the other 2 months were go spend time with the residents. But I think the reason behind that is like the people who are the best version of themselves are going to be able to take care of these people in the best way possible. And it was just such a lucky course where you think it would be more so geared to healthcare, was a lot more geared towards just
Mhm.
be a very respectful, good communicator that has goals and can just be a positive member of society. And I took away so much from that college program.
And how long was it? 1 year?
It was 9 months, so seven
Okay.
class, and then 1 month in a placement, and then 1 month in a different placement. So it was 9 months, and I got a college certificate,
All
and
that.
it was the best 9 months I've ever spent. Like just
Yeah, those sound like really neat classes. Like a whole one on goal setting. Oh my goodness.
I know, and then like randomly we had a whole other one on like just writing skills and just general life skills. It was so interesting because you there was a little bit where you learn about dementia and Alzheimer's and how it works and why they behave the way they do. But
Huh.
it was a very interesting class. I don't know.
Yeah, and see, so somebody like me is like, oh my God, I would take that course just for fun. Like yes, the placement and stuff, but it's a little bit of that, dipping your toe in all these different ponds that we're able to do because the stuff that you would learn, like all those classes you're describing, I'm like, oh my goodness, that sounds so cool. Yeah, wow.
Because in our position, we were not expected to do any of the caretaking. we weren't we had some qualifications to do like transfers where you could put a belt on someone and help them up out of their chair and
Okay,
maybe into a different chair. But we're not the nurses. We don't have any qualifications to give medication. That's a
right.
no-go for life. And we also weren't healthcare aides, so we didn't get the training to like how to properly take someone to the toilet and properly wipe and do this and that.
Got it.
So all we were mainly just, I mean, not to degrade ourselves, kind of like clowns, where you were supposed to be
Mm,
that excitement because
yeah,
when you're in a room full of people with cognitive impairment, you just want to somehow brighten
yeah,
their day in whatever way you can. And
yeah.
yeah, and that's basically where I got a lot of great life skills from that college class.
Yeah, geez, wow. I didn't realize that the types of classes would be in that program. I would think it would be more geared towards the health side. But yeah, I guess if you're there's that division, right, between like the medicine and the nurses and things like that. Wow, yeah.
So
And
it
so
was
how old were you when you took that course?
I was 19 at the time
Okay, yeah.
started, so I was 20 when I finished. And then I basically worked in the care home from like 20 to about 24-ish. And then
Okay.
ended up in a sales job for a year because still within the healthcare field. The whole point of this business was to so let's say you're an older adult in the community, maybe in your 80s or 90s, and you're still lucky enough to live in your home, or maybe you're in a retirement community where you don't have that much people watching over you. Well, the point of this business was we would have a nurse come to your home, pick you up with a driver, take you to your healthcare appointment. The nurse would take notes of what the doctor said, and then that report would be sent to the family member. So if you had a parent that was out of province, or even you were just like a very busy executive and you couldn't take that time off to take your loved one to the
Oh
healthcare
wow.
appointment.
Okay.
So I found myself in a startup there for a year, and I did pretty well there. And then that's when I had saved up a good chunk of money and I knew I loved helping people. And it just
Hmm.
behind that desk doing that job, I didn't feel like I was helping anyone. And so I was
Yeah.
like, how can I get out there and help people and do what I love? And that's kind of how it all came to be with my cross Canada marathon. It was a way to take some time back for myself, honor my
Yeah.
hero, Terry Fox, and also hopefully do some good for the world. And that's
Yeah.
just, I try to just live by those values and then find whatever opportunity it takes me into.
Yeah, exactly. And you never know where the next thing takes you. And that's what's super, super cool about that. Yeah. Oh, that's a fun little side note. Yeah. And it's good. It's also interesting to learn that if you do have somebody who's in one of those care facilities and they have a director like the position you were in, what they had to learn to get there, and that's how they're caring for your loved one. Yeah, so that's interesting. I like that one.
But
So
well,
if
yeah, go ahead.
go ahead, no, go ahead.
I was just gonna do a little side note on care homes. It's a whole other universe in there, and like I was, I don't want to put my own tires. I was kind of an anomaly, like a young male. It's very
Yeah,
rare to see. You'll see young females, but you very rarely see young males in that setting. So I
yeah,
just think, I mean, I was just lucky that I was never the one forcing medication down anyone's throats. If they said
yeah,
no to me, no was no. And
yeah,
I just got really in there. I'd put my arms over their shoulder. They had two sides on their wheelchairs, so I would kind of hold myself up and sit on their laps and
oh yeah,
like like they were my
yeah,
own loved one.
yeah.
And
And
that's
there's way too many places that don't have that, even from like the nurses care and whatnot. There's a lot of places that don't, some of the stories you hear, things you see when you go in there, you're like, oh Lord. So yeah, I think you were a wonderful anomaly and there should be more like that. But yeah,
I think it
yeah,
comes down to basically what they do is they'll get people from the Philippines and from Africa and from India who just need employment in Canada. They'll do anything. And so they're able to pay these people between 16 to $19 an hour for this very hard
Mm.
physical, mental,
Yeah.
draining work. And then you get no one from Canada who's actually interested in going to school and doing that job because it's
Mm.
just there's so much strain, physical and mental. And then I always say you don't even get compensated really for it, barely enough to pay your bills. So it's definitely
Yeah,
an
and
interesting sector.
yeah, and maybe there's some people that don't that think there's more medical stuff involved even in that position, and so they like steer away a little bit. So that's interesting to put that knowledge out there because yeah, if someone's listening and is like, oh, you mean I don't have to give the needles to, or I don't have to take them to the bathroom, or try and get them to take their medicine. There's a lot of people that just thrive in helping and doing activities and things like that. Well, yeah, well, that's a good one. That's a good one. Okay, so tips with the goals. Making your lists and little subsections. I love that. Um, and then just first off with the goal, think about what it is that you're really wanting.
Hmm.
Um, and is it important? You touched base on this earlier, and I'm so happy you said it because I knew I was going to say this. When you think about this goal as something that you want, do you think it's important enough to put the time into it? And when you were talking about, if you spent 16 hours a day on this, I was like, oh, yes, 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 it's going to connect later. Um, you're, if it seems like a chore to put time into this goal, um, it maybe isn't correct. It might need a little tweaking, or maybe it's something just a little different. If something becomes a chore, we're probably not going to do it. So think about what it is that you really want. Is that something that's super important to you and strives with your values? And are you going to put the time in? Make sure you're going to do that.
Yeah, you said that amazingly. Make sure it's something you actually want to do
Yeah.
because I mean, I'll even you I can only refer to my own experience, but um how would I say this with still sounding grateful where you with this own personal thing I'm doing just working for myself, even now it's becoming kind of chore like because
Yeah.
so much with it that you're always focused on where it's like there's always a
Yeah.
trade-off. Before I used to go to work 8 hours a day, and that was my day. Now I'd go to work for myself, but it's like 16 hours a day because I
Yeah. Yeah.
stop, I'm gonna fall behind and then things aren't gonna get done. And so then it starts, you lose that, like, you lose that joy, then it becomes a
Yes.
chore. So I don't know what I'm trying to say with that. It's just that no matter what end of the spectrum you're on,
Yeah.
things just lean into what you love. And if you don't pivot, like I know I'm with this book process, it's been cool. It's been an interesting journey. I love being able to like learn. I love everything I've learned about it, about myself, about the process. But
Mm-hmm.
will I probably go back into book writing after this? Probably not, because it's not giving me that joy. Like I've been to the point now where there's a care home behind Tammy's yarn store, and every time we're here, I'm just looking at it and I'm like, I think I would enjoy being there more right now than I would with
Yeah.
this journey. But that's just the book writing process. The thing I really
Mm-hmm.
loved is connecting with the people and getting out there and advocating for cancer research. So when I reach that
Yeah.
stage of this mission, I'm sure the fulfillment and those amazing
Yeah.
joys will return. But definitely it's becoming chore-like at this point.
And not every goal, like I think we're talking about goals helping us get out of um survival mode, and so that should, in my opinion, that should be something that's joyful. But in general, not all goals like one of the goals might be to save up enough money for a down payment on a home or whatever it might be. Well, that might involve lots of work, and right now it might not involve changing a job, but you're in a job and you're not necessarily enjoying it. Not all the time can every single step of our goals be a positive thing. And that's okay too. But it's okay if there's up and down. Like if there's a positive feeling one day and then it's starting to become a chore. But it also teaches you, like you said, you might not go back to book writing, at least now you know, but you're doing something different. But that's okay too. Not sometimes sometimes people will look at me sometimes if I talk about spirituality or things like that, and they're just like, well, I don't know, I can't buy into it because I just don't think you can be 100% happy all the time. No, 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 it's not what I'm selling. No, not everything is supposed to be fantastic all the time. You know what I mean? So it's okay to have those.
No, absolutely. And I think what's for me, what spirituality is finding the peace within all of it. Like we're the ones who attach good and bad to outcomes. And so I just think spirituality is able to just somehow being able to curate and find the good within all of it. So like I said,
Yeah,
the what the life is suffering, it's just being able to find all of the little, just being able to stay at peace
yeah,
and keep chipping away at life. Life is just such a crazy thing, Wendy. We all have a different human experience. We all get finite amount
yeah.
of time. And I always go back
Mhm.
to the nothing matters. Like we're all here, like I could go today or tomorrow and life would keep the sun would keep coming up and
Yeah,
life would keep going on. And so nothing really has meaning. It's what we make of everything. So
yeah,
just do what makes you happy as much as you
yeah.
can. It's not, you're not going to be able to do that all the time. And that's when I think spirituality comes in to where finding ways to get into the moment, even in the times where you're not happy to be there.
Exactly. Because that's going to happen and that's okay too. That is okay too. So just a few more things with our goal setting that I thought of. Um, Creating a plan, like you've written the stuff down, you recognize some things, create a little plan, um, and recognize any obstacles you might come up against, because that's also okay too. If you come up against an obstacle, we all will. You got to keep going. Just sort of keep taking um, that action to work towards the goals, blocking out the time if you're really needing to, because that's important to put that time in, right? Again, it doesn't have to be a huge amount of time. Um, and then just keep rechecking in with your process, keep rechecking in with the goals. Maybe you need an accountability person. Some people do. Use that to your advantage if you want to as well. Just set yourself up for success when it comes to the goals. Don't jump too hard out of the gate because you want to make sure that it's going to work for you. And it's okay if you jump too hard, recognize it once you start to feel that and readjust. Don't like, oh, forget this. I'm out. It's too hard. Just bring it, reel it in to where you think you can be and give her. Just make those smart goals.
I love what you said about obstacles there because every single person is going to run into obstacles,
Yeah.
but it's almost like if you can reframe them, since you know they're coming, you know there's going to be an obstacle, reframe it as almost like it's now I'm being challenged. Now this is my time to prove myself and to prove everything I've been learning and building up for. I'm going to conquer this obstacle and I'm going to keep going because obstacles are going to be a part of my life no matter what.
Yeah. And that might be those times where you need to reassess and recheck in, which is okay. Okay, here's this obstacle. It was harder than I thought. It was easier than I thought. Just, yep. And maybe you can't change the obstacles. Maybe they have to be there. Or maybe you can't work around them as much as you thought, but still try and work with them because it can be easy to be like, I'm out when you hit one and they're just there.
Yeah, this analogy could fall flat on its face, but I'm gonna go for it.
Oh, I
So,
love it.
you know, people who do algebra, right? They almost love the puzzle of it all, but it all
Yep.
it is, it's a math equation. Like, how can you see a math equation like it's a whole riddle and a puzzle that you're slowly solving and figuring out? But if we almost take the analogy of the person that loves the algebra equation, but take out the algebra and instead of algebra just being a life obstacle, if you see it as something you get to navigate and maneuver and solve and figure out, you might
Yep.
have more fun in actually engaging with it than just seeing it like a puzzle you can't figure out and then you're just throwing it off the table like, ah, screw it, I'm giving up now.
Yeah. Yeah. Figure that out in your, no, that was a good analogy. I love that. Love that. So then my last thing that I had thought of for the goals, and I wrote this one down too because I sort of use this a little bit. I have it written down downstairs in front of me too. There is the I don't, whatever they call it there for SMART goals, where the beginning of the letter stands for something. So be specific for the S, be specific in your goals and really narrow down to the detail what it is you're looking for. It's sort of on that same planet as manifesting. Um, Make sure they're measurable.
Hmm.
Know your success rate with your progress of the goals, and if that needs to be sort of picked or fixed along the way, make sure they're attainable, um, and make sure that you can accomplish them in a time frame that you've maybe made for yourself. Make sure it's attainable. Don't, like a lot of people can do that sometimes with weight loss. So I want to lose 40 pounds in 2 weeks. Well, it's not, it's slow down, make sure it's attainable, make sure it's realistic. And then the time bound, really look at your time. And if you think that's going to work, don't make it too hard on yourself, too fast, too rushed. Be ambitious with an end date, but be realistically ambitious.
Absolutely. And just maybe one last thing I want to touch on, just because you had mentioned like someone's goal could be to lose 40 pounds, where
Yep.
if I were that person, I actually would have a complete opposite way of looking at it. It wouldn't be about losing 40 pounds, it would actually be how do I attain a healthier lifestyle? And then
Yes.
with that healthier lifestyle, that actually comes along with it.
Yep. And that's part of that realistic, I think, and that attainable, because, well, and I'm guilty of it too. The up and down. You can lose weight, gain it back, lose it. Were you sort of realistic and looking at this as an attainable thing? If you didn't really take care of having the healthy lifestyle, then you know. So in that example, yeah, make sure that it's realistic for you and where you're at and what you're doing and what you can accomplish, and on the whole broad spectrum of where you're at.
One of these weeks, if anyone's listening, I think it'd be really cool because I feel like we have a lot of advice and a lot of maybe not like advice, sure, but tools, I'm gonna call it, different tools we
Yeah.
could apply to people. I think it'd be super cool if one of these weeks someone maybe wanted to volunteer themselves. We'd love to have you on, and even if it's just a short time where you can
Yeah.
tell us maybe one of your goals, and all three of us could try and find a way together for your goals to start to seem more attainable. And then we can actually start showing putting some of this into real practice.
Yep.
And because we're talking very abstract, but I would love to have like a real case study where someone came in on our Zoom box and could
Yep.
tell us, well, this is my goal. And then we could actually pick apart the goal and figure out how to actually make it attainable and where they might have been going wrong with their goal setting. And then we can all learn together. And then hopefully from that case study, people watching will be like, actually, yeah, I was setting my goals too big. And now I'm realizing I'm not the only one who does that, but they
Yeah.
actually provided us with some tools on how to get to where we want to go.
Yeah, because some people try things more than once, right? Because maybe the goals didn't quite work. Were they too big? Whatever it might be. Was it not a reasonable amount of time? Whatever it might be. But the idea of what you want doesn't go away. So you end up trying again, and so even if it's someone who's in that position, okay, I've been at this for a little bit and I've been trying, the goals aren't working. Um, yeah, what sort of tools in the toolbox can we apply for some fine-tuned tweaking that might help be successful this time? Yeah, I think that would be fun.
Yeah, we get all kinds of nice comments, and people are like, "Oh, I love the podcast, so much to think about. I'm gonna apply this, apply that." And that's amazing. So anyone who's actually getting stuff out of this, it means the world to me, and I'm sure to Wendy too. But if anyone who did want just a little bit of a deeper dive and actually sit down with us, I mean, we would feel honored to have that conversation with you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love it.
So, did you have any final thoughts for this week, Wendy?
Um, I don't think so. I think we've touched on all of that and you know, just again, always I think we're saying this a lot, but be patient with yourselves, right? These are big, big things. Even just the act of realizing you're in survival mode is sometimes a big thing. So yeah, just be patient with yourself, be forgiving, and even if they're just small goals to work yourself out of there. One of the Buddhist sayings that I love is don't let the day pass in vain. Accomplish something great or small. So
Mm,
keep that in mind. It doesn't have to be a huge thing. Even if you're just goal slowly getting your way out, you got this.
you got this. And that's why I used the example of even the toothbrushing, because you would think the guy who ran across Canada, I'm admitting to you guys that some days it's hard for me to even brush my teeth. And that's the littlest thing from a
Yeah.
guy who would have to run 50 kilometers plus a day. Some some days I can't even get out of bed and brush my teeth, and that's just being a human being. So I
Yep.
understand that even the, people you might look at and be like, wow, they've got it all figured out. They don't. They're just like
Mm-mm.
you. They just fake it till they make it, and they try their best as much as they can, and they don't let those couple bad days bleed into the rest of the good days. They just, I
Yeah.
had a couple bad days, so be it. I recharged. Now let's get back out there. Let's brush our teeth. Let's shower. Let's clean our house. Let's get moving again. Let's fix up the diet a bit. And then it slowly starts cascading. And then you realize 2 weeks later and you're really on a groove. And then you don't want to let that groove go. And then you just keep going. Then it's a month. And then it's who you are at that point.
Yes. Yep. And again, the freedom to pivot when that works for a while, and you're like, all right, let's take a different direction. That's part of our luxury of being human and being able to design our own existence a little bit. Yep, pivot if you need to.
Amazing. Well, without further ado, I think that
Yeah.
may be wrapping up episode 6 of Putting the Feel Back in Tuesday.
Yes.
Awesome.
So excited. Hopefully next week works out. And we can maybe have Amber on. If not, then further down the road. But yeah, we did it.
Amazing, you guys. And just remember, try and hold your peace. I'm going to keep you guys accountable. Next week, I'm going to see if any of you guys were able to keep the 7-day streak going. Well, I'm going for 14 here. It's not easy. I could crack any moment, but I'm holding strong. Let us know if you guys held out, and let us know if any of you will try and do another 7 days of no negativity with us.
We can do it.
All right. Love you, Wendy. Love you, everyone.
I love you too. Chat later.
Take care.
Take care.